We begin with our top focus right now in Taiwan. Voters are casting ballots in the high-stake elections and the polling is set to end shortly. Taiwan's presidential and legislative elections are being closely watched as China steps up its rhetoric over the self-ruled island. Polls opened at 8 a.m. local time at nearly 18,000 locations from the island's south to its capital Taipei. And Taiwan's President Tsai Ing-wen has cast her vote. Now remember that Tsai is constitutionally barred from standing again after serving 2 terms in office. And all running presidential candidates have also cast their votes. Lai Ching-te from the ruling DPP, Hou Yu-yi from opposition party KMT, and TPP leader Ko Wen-je were among the early voters. Now with vote counting set to begin in a few minutes, frontrunner Lai has yet again urged the people to keep their independence in mind.
Every vote is valued, and this is Taiwan's hard-earned democracy. We should all cherish our democracy and vote enthusiastically.
Meanwhile, Taiwan's defense ministry has said that it had detected 2 Chinese balloons crossing the Taiwan Strait in the previous 24 hours, and one of which flew over Taiwan Island. In another development, China's social media platform has blocked a hashtag on Taiwan's election. It had become one of the most trending topics on the site this morning, but soon it was taken down. Earlier in Washington, U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken met with veteran Chinese diplomat Liu Xianzhao just hours before the polls in Taiwan. Now, Liu is viewed as a top contender to be China's next foreign minister. And questions are being raised over Blinken meeting him and not current Foreign Minister Wang Yi. Now, the United States continues to caution China against using the elections as a pretext for instability. And as per reports quoting the State Department, Blinken has asked China for cross-strait stability. And joining us live from Taipei, Adam Hancock. Hi, Adam. Thanks for joining in.
Hello there.
Well, tell us that Taiwan's voter turnout has actually declined nearly 15% since the early 2000s, and the drop has been particularly severe among the younger voters. Are we expecting an increase in turnout this time?
I think that could well be the case. It does feel that a lot of younger voters are engaged in this election campaign. One of the candidates you mentioned there, Ko Wen-je, he's done very well with the younger candidates. We're led to believe in some of the polling that came out before the blackout was installed. Particularly on social media, he's been gaining a lot of support. And I've been speaking to voters here at the polling station today, younger people, younger voters, some first and second time voters. And they seem very keen for this election to be a bit more about issues that matter to them domestically, such as the economy, such as jobs, the high cost of housing here in Taipei, rather than it just being all about cross-strait tensions. Now, turnout is obviously hard to judge until the official numbers come in, but there have been reports of long queues outside polling stations, particularly across Taipei. The polling station I've been at all day here, there's been a steady stream of people throughout. So we would expect, as per usual in a Taiwan election, a good turnout. And it does indeed seem that a lot of young people are engaged in this election.
Yes, Adam, and as you pointed out, economic and domestic concerns still remains as one of the main concerns, primary concerns of the voters. And how about many young voters have also said independence from China isn't their biggest concern. But do you still think that the China factor is still overshadowing this vote to any extent?
Yeah, I would say that's a fair assessment. You do speak to voters, and I've been asking a lot of voters, what is their main concern when it comes to going to the polls today? And they still say Taiwan's national security, maintaining Taiwan's democracy, keeping Taiwan free and Taiwan's independence. They're still the biggest issue. You can talk to younger voters, older voters. I've spoken to a lot of voters, and they've all said much of the same thing. China is a concern for them. They're very proud of their democracy here. I've had people coming up to me today, thanking me for being here and covering this election. A lot of smiles, a lot of people waving. So they're very proud of their democracy. And I think it's showed by the amount of people who come out and vote and attend the mass rallies. But if you dial down with people and have a conversation about this election, it still does come back to who is best suited to deal with the cross-strait tensions that are currently at play.
And Adam, as per the latest reports that have just come in, anti-Beijing candidate Lai Ching-te was leading in most opinion polls, and you also mentioned it. Ahead of the election, he was leading it. But after China's repeated warnings against candidates who back Taiwan's independence, can we still expect some swing in voter sentiment as we head to the counting?
It's very difficult to predict really how much of an influence those kind of comments from China will have. You only have to look back a few years ago when China was changing Hong Kong and implementing the national security law, and it ended up with a landslide victory for the DPP here. So people certainly weren't intimidated. The polls were definitely fairly tight before the election blackout came into play. It was at the start of the year when we got our final look at what the polling was saying, and then since then we've had no indication. But I think there won't be too many people here who will have been swayed by comments coming out of China or even the actions of China, such as, for example, the balloons that have been spotted over the Taiwan Strait and even have flown over this island in the last few days.
Well, thanks, Adam, for joining in and giving us those updates from ground. Thanks for your time.
Thank you.